really specifically focused on taking people that already know how to code, but ramping them up on AI coding in particular. And so they take away their ability to code with anything else and just let them code with AI. And it's pretty incredible with what they've done. And so inspired by that, we took that back to this class and revamped what we had been doing, if not totally different. So basically every week the students get up and they pitch. They pitch ideas that they have for startups and things that they've heard, and they practice taking their ideas and turning them into like getting other people excited about them and communicating them. And then also every week they build demos by taking things that they heard pitched by themselves or other people in the previous weeks and turning those into something real. And they have to be, the rules are it has to be something that they heard pitched previously. It has to be something they built just since the last class, which pretty much means they have to use AI to go build it. I don't know, I thought there was another rule, I don't remember it. And then finally, every week we have an amazing guest speaker, someone that comes in that's a successful entrepreneur that talks about what they've built and what they're doing, but also kind of tries to put it in the frame of the students that are here by giving their own pitch for what they're building and talking about it or showing a demo if they can. Of course, people want to ask them questions, so giving the students some time to talk to them too. And then that becomes something that the students can go build the next week. And then at the end, I'll give one more pitch too. But today, we've got Tim Westergren with us, who I'm really excited to have visit. Let's give him a round of applause. Thanks for joining us, Tim. And he's going to jump up more towards the middle, but just so you know who's here, Tim was one of the founders of Pandora, which is one of the first AI streaming music services. For streaming music services, is one of the first things I think everybody thought was AI, as we were talking about it earlier, or maybe we can find out how much was AI and how much was people and how much was what, or what we call AI today. But for me, it was definitely one of the first things that really opened my eyes up to recommendation services and just music discovery and a lot of other things. And that I think so many other things that we see now have learned from and built on top of too. And we'll hear also about what he's thinking about now, what he might be focused on next. So really excited to have Tim join us. And then, kind of like I said, if I was starting over from scratch to go build Pandora today, it would look a lot different than what it was like when he started. What year did you start? In 2000. Wow. So 25 years ago. And so definitely no ChatGPT or Claude helping to code it. And AI probably was thought of in some ways in a lot of different ways, in a different way. So we'll get to hear from Tim, what he's learned from that. And most importantly, you're going to mostly hear from our students who are going to be getting up and pitching. And so again, the first part of the pitch or the class will be the students getting up, and it's just students that'll be getting up on stage today. But they've been doing this all semester, and so they'll get up and give quick pitches. And Tim and I both have mics. We'll give them quick feedback. But the idea is to keep it moving pretty quickly. And these are not necessarily things that they are real yet. They might just, a lot of them are ideas. Some of them are real. But this is them taking their ideas and turning them into something that can get other people excited and learn how to communicate that. Then we'll jump to the demos, and then we'll jump to Tim. So, am I missing anything else, Anjali? All right. Great. So, I think, am missing something else. The pitches, part of Longhorn Startup tradition, is every week the best pitch gets a $100 bill. And Tim, you get to decide who the best pitch is. And I'll tell you, when you see like 5 or 10 pitches, if you're honest, sometimes by the end I'm like, it's harder. So you have to remember which one was the best. But you get to decide at the end and give out a $100 bill. So, all right, are we ready to roll? All right, thanks so much.
Pitching, if you want to just line up here.
Yeah, all the students who are pitching, go ahead and line up like usual on the side.
Hey everyone, I'm Trace, and with 3 weeks left in last spring semester, I tore my ACL. Crazy, right? I left the clinic with printouts and portal login and good intentions. And summer recovery was honestly great. I had plenty of time to do all of my exercises, and I stayed on top of my PT. But however, when fall semester hit, I started to fall behind. I was no longer logging my exercises, I wasn't icing on time, and in general, in between PT sessions, a lot of time was being wasted. They had a telehealth app, my PT, but it was just there. You know, it wasn't really like a coach. It was just another portal to ignore, I felt like. And I went on the App Store looking for a solution, and I found Pulse. I downloaded it, and it promised to fix all of my problems. Enthusiastically, I put all my information in, and I, went to bed. Next morning, as usual, I forgot about it, like I did with all my other PT stuff. I went to classes, came back, started scrolling on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, like how college students do. During this scrolling, about 15 minutes in, I got a notification. That was a screen time notification. It said, Pulse has blocked the use of TikTok. I felt angered, and then I felt like maybe I should do something, right? This was the perfect time for me to be doing my exercises, and yet, here I was, scrolling on TikTok. I got the reminder, and reluctantly, I logged into Pulse. It greeted me with my name. It said, "Hey, Trace, do you have 3 minutes to do a couple of swelling exercises?" I was like, 3 minutes? 3 minutes for more scrolling? Of course, I have time to do that. I did the exercises and moved on with my day. The next morning, in between my classes, once again, I was on Snapchat, scrolling on Snapchat's Spotlight. I got nudged. It said, "Open hallway, go do 10 heel slides." I continued with my exercises. Then I started using this app, and it really helped me with my PT. And here I am, 22 weeks later, pain-free, running and jumping 3 weeks ahead of schedule. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to warn you. That's called the Techstars clap. I don't know if it's really a Techstars clap. I just learned it from Techstars. But basically, we just do one big clap. So you watch me. One clap. But good job. Great job. You obviously practiced that, which is the number one thing starting off to having a good pitch is like being comfortable with it and practicing it. And even when you got a little, stumped, you rolled through it. One of the things that I think would make it better would be you don't have to necessarily there were times where you just kind of you kind of bad talk to the app. You were like, reluctantly I opened the app, or things like that. And I just wouldn't make your own app sound bad. I would leave that part out of it. But yeah. Tim, feel free to jump in if you want, or you can.
So you Pulse is the app you built?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure about. Okay. I liked that you refer to personal habits, like you made it very real for people, like scrolling, which is a common activity for folks, so people could connect to that. Talk a little bit about business, model behind this. Does it feel like a subscription thing? Any sort of intuition about how you might make money on it?
Yeah, I think right now I'm just gonna do ads on the thing. It's gonna be free. It's gonna be free to use.
All right.
Yeah, should include that.
Awesome. Great. Well, we'll do the next one. We're gonna keep them moving. We have a big line.
Hey guys, I'm Nikhil. Okay, could I get a show of hands for the students here? How many of us want to make a startup or have made a startup before? Yeah, all of us, right? We're in a startup class. Okay, now how many of us have made a successful startup? Oh, one. So that's what we're going to talk about, actually. So let's talk a little bit about what success is. When I made my first startup, I spent 10 weeks making a product. I made a product for streamers to sell their merch on to their viewers. And then pretty much I launched the product. I got 2 users. One was me testing the app, and the other was my dad. So yeah, it's really hard. So I went into marketing. I hopped on TikTok, I made a few videos, and I got 100 views, I flopped. So then I went on LinkedIn. I made one of those really long posts saying we're hiring high school interns. And then we got 200 applicants. I was super excited, right? I got 30 interviews from that. I spent 20 hours of my life doing that. And then I got 4 interns. Those interns did absolutely nothing because they were just trying to grind extracurriculars for college. We all did that, right? So I decided to make an app for you guys to get those creators directly. So you can see your products come to fruition with Creatable. So let's go back to my streamer website, for example, right? All I gotta do now is press a button, put in information about my company, and then I get matched with the creator. Creatable gives you like a contract, right? It gives you like a 1-week trial, and then all I gotta do now is tell my creator to like make some videos. If I like it, boom, I have like a creator for a year with the contract they gave me. If I don't, then I can just press another button and get a new creator. So next time you guys make a product, instead of having your only user be your dad, hop on Creatable and get down to marketing.
All right. All right. Good job. My biggest feedback for you would be that, like, your story was really engaging. It was funny. Like, you were keeping me in it. But then when I finally got to what it was, I was kind of like a little lost. Then it's not all the beginning of the story made sense. And so, just kind of tightening it up into like, I cut out any parts of the story that don't directly relate to like what you're building, because there's a little bit too much wandering around, and then I was like, oh, you were trying to hire creators. Like, I didn't realize that till now.
Also, I think your initial point was quality control, I think. And it would have been nice if you'd come back to that when you said, okay, I have one created, it didn't work out. Anything around reducing the pain of, people that don't work out, like do you evaluate and so on, seems like an important thing to hit.
Awesome, thanks.
Hello, my name is Chris, and as a college student, the typical lecture goes like this. You go to lecture, you listen, you leave. You don't really talk to anyone during lecture because that'd be distracting. And you don't really talk to anyone after because everyone has their own schedule. So this kind of isolates you. You're off, especially when you're studying, you're off just like doing your own thing. You're sticking to the things you want to study as well. I found this to be a bit hurtful when I was studying because after one of my midterms, I talked to some people outside the class. We're just like comparing what we knew, what we thought we knew. And they had studied things that were completely different to me. They studied that a lot more. They had a lot better understanding of that certain concept, and I had better understanding of a lot of other concepts as well. So I reevaluated how I studied. And I asked my roommate one time when he was trying to go study how he met the friends that he was going to go study with, because as I said, it's very isolating typically during lecture. He said it was through an app called Study Buddy. So Study Buddy is this app sort of like Tinder. You swipe left and right, and you kind of just put your preferences. So if you're more talkative during studying, then you can say that, or if you're like more quiet, then you can also put that as well. But also, you can look for things that challenge how you study as well to see if it does better. For example, I'm more quiet, but I found that talking about things can actually make me understand the material a lot better. So I used this, I met some people on it, and I did some things that I don't typically do when I study, and I found that, having a conversation about the material actually made it a lot better for me. So my next exam, I didn't have that conversation afterwards about what did you guys get or what did you miss. I just knew that I felt a lot more confident in what I knew, and then I knew a lot more than I would have. So yeah, I hope y'all can study better with Study Buddy as well. Thank you.
I like the problem you're going after. Getting people together, connecting, reconnecting, relational health, and using that to support sort of their education. Just as maybe just a comment on presentation, like I would be a little more dynamic, practice that, and I think, by the way, this exercise of doing speed pitching is a phenomenally valuable thing to do, and I think that pitching is theater. We don't think of it that way, but it is theater. And so as much as you're trying to convey an idea, you're also trying to convey like, hey, I'm exciting, interesting, fun, compelling, literally charismatic. And so I think for you, practice in the mirror and just work on that part of it.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that. Like, you clearly planned this out, and I've seen you do it once before, and and practiced it. You could tell that you were a little bit nervous, and you're talking fast.
Yeah.
And so your pitch was actually a really great conversational pitch, but when you say it really fast, it doesn't sound like conversation because you're saying it so fast that it's sounds like you practiced it and you saved it up, right?
Which, by the way, is true for everybody so far.
Yeah,
The only one.
And so just slowing down, like you said, looking in the mirror, even recording yourself, because then when you play it back, you realize that you're talking really fast, or whatever that might be.
I pitched Pandora 348 times before getting funding.
Before getting to the first funding?
The first one was angel funding. The first institutional,
Okay.
348 pitches,
Wow.
and practiced it a lot. So I practiced it thousands of times ultimately, and that's something you should all expect to do to become good at it.
For sure. All right, good job. Yeah, just to double tap on what we already heard. Practice is a huge part of it, and a lot of people think that I'm like I think I'm very comfortable on stage, and one of the things that I think makes me a good speaker is just being comfortable, and that is 100% from practice. I was definitely not always comfortable, and it took a long time to get comfortable. And then the other thing is like the more comfortable you are with what you're talking about, usually the easier it is to be comfortable about it too, and that just directly ties back to practice. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Samara, and I would like to tell you about the time I ran my second half marathon. So for my first half marathon, I ran it with my best friend, Paulina. We talked, laughed, pushed each other throughout the entire race. And although the course was hard, just having her right there next to me made it feel very much lighter. However, for my second half marathon, Paulina was injured, and she couldn't run it with me. I remember standing at the starting line feeling so scared. It was the same course, the same crowd, but it felt completely different just knowing that I would be out there alone. At first I told myself it was gonna be fine. But around at mile 6, I began to hit this wall. That wall where your body starts to hurt, your legs feel heavy, your music is not cutting it enough, and you can even begin to listen to your own breathing. That's when all of a sudden I heard Paulina. You got this, keep pushing, you're so strong. Not only did I hear her metaphorically, but I was physically listening to her on my headphones. I had forgotten that a couple days earlier to the race, she had put this app on my phone that apparently let her record audio messages that would play for me during the race. Not only that, but she had also shared it with my entire family, because the next time Stronger by Kanye West, which is my favorite running song, ended, my mom's voice came on. You got this, honey, we're so proud of you. A couple of miles later, my dad's voice came on. Keep pushing, you're so strong. As an international student living far away from home, I can't even begin to describe how much this changed the race for me. In that moment, it didn't feel like I was running alone anymore, but it felt like every voice I loved was right there beside me, cheering me from the sidelines of the race. This is when I discovered how powerful sound can be when every other sense begins to fail you throughout a race. How a few familiar words can completely shift your mindset from exhaustion to motivation. That day, thanks to the Mile Motivator app and to being surrounded by the voices of all of my loved ones, I was able to cross the finish line and even hit a new personal best record. Thank you.
Nice job. I think that the point I would make is that this can expand far beyond just running. I think using running as the sort of your personal experience is a great way to introduce the idea, but I think you should also say, look, there's hundreds of different places where you can imagine someone benefiting from a familiar voice, about to give a public speech, for example. So I would expand the aperture, because investors are always looking for what's the sort of small good idea, but what could be a platform.
Come on up. It's Boston Startup Week. We've got panels all day, so the mics are running out of battery. No, she's in two places. She's got
It's 9:30 at night. The marching band has gone home, the stadium lights are on, and the director is still out there, analyzing rehearsal footage, notebook in hand. And the thing is, the next day, he's going to do the exact same thing, waking up anywhere from 6:30 for morning rehearsals, and being there all the way till night around 9 or 10 o'clock, sometimes even till the next day on game days or evening events. And as someone who's done marching band for over 8 years, I've been able to see firsthand how hard that marching band directors have to work. I mean, they're always there, they're always doing different things for the band, and every time I ask them, like, what's a big thing that's taking up all your time,
they always say analyzing footage for marching bands. Because the thing is, marching bands have so many people. There's like 150 people, there's like 80 different formations, and there's all this like different choreo that they have to look for. And so when they're analyzing this like footage, they can't always like pick up every single detail that's on the field. And so that eats up a lot of their time, and unfortunately that can also lead to bad habits because there might be someone who might not have like the right foot timing, and over the season that bad habit can build up, which can be detrimental to the success of the band. And so that's why I decided to build MarchMind. The way it works is it's an analytics platform for marching bands. And so all you have to do is you upload a video of your rehearsal footage, your performance footage, and what it does is it analyzes it, looking at the visual components like your foot timing, your choreography, how inline the formations are, and it looks for anomalies within that. So that way, these marching band directors, all they have to do is they have to upload their footage, they can use this tool to analyze that, and now they get back all of their time while still having all of this data that they can use to know what exactly to work on the next day. And so that's MarchMind, empowering band directors by giving back their time and also giving bands a competitive edge. And on top of that, there's over 30,000 high school marching bands as well as college marching bands, not to mention drum corps, the more competitive version of marching band. And so there's clearly a market here, there's clearly demand for it. I think it's time that we implement a data analytics platform for marching band. Thank you.
I might flip that presentation and start off with some statistics about marching band, because that'll be unfamiliar to most people. And maybe something like, an average marching band performance has X steps, X movements, X, just how complex it is. And then and there are 30,000 of them around the country, and there are a bunch of sleep-deprived directors, and it's like, need someone in with something that, okay, now I get it, because no one, without that context, they might not feel this sort of complexity and the magnitude of the task.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is what, kind of, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably haven't been through that, so maybe saying something like, hey, who here was in band? It was in a marching band. And they're like, all right, probably, looks like not that many of you. Let me tell you what it's like being in a marching band. Like, last weekend, I had to go do this thing. You know what? I was out there. There were 200 other people on the field with me, all moving around at the same time. And it's like basically like a big choreographed dance. And, I had to memorize this many steps and blah, 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 like kind of like talk about your experience with that. And I think that would really help build it up. I agree. And then there's a company, I was looking for the name, I can't find it. There's a startup that was in Longhorn Startup like 10 years ago that I think like now does all the, like, would you have an app that like teaches you your steps? Yeah, Ultimate Drill Book.
Yeah,
yes, that's it.
Yeah.
So they took Longhorn Startup. Wow. Yeah, like they're like a UT start. They came out of UT and they were a UT startup. So that sounds like a potential like partnership or something. Do you use them?
Yeah, I use them. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So anyway, so like flashback 10 years ago when Ultimate Drill Book, which is an app for teaching you the steps for all that, was in your class. Good job.
A few weeks ago, my friend invited me over and she was like, hey, do you want to play a board game? And I was like, haven't played one since like summer camp, but I'm so down. So she goes to this room, she opens up this closet, and it is filled floor to ceiling with board games. And I was like, how do you have so many? The problem is that her family just keeps buying new ones and not using the old ones. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. So we pulled out this vintage board game, and it was so much fun. Later, I went home, I looked it up. It was $140. I was like, who in the world is going to pay $140 for a vintage board game they're going to play like twice? So that's why I had an idea. I called my friend and I was like, hey, how would you feel about like renting out your board game for like $5 to a couple people and you can get it right back so you never really lose it? She was like, yes, please. We're just like sitting and collecting dust. And that's when I created Family Game Night, a community platform where you can rent and share specialty and vintage board games from other people nearby. Instead of giving money to big businesses or a sketchy Facebook marketplace like exchange, families and friends can rediscover a weekend game night all for a fraction of the cost. It's sustainable, it's nostalgic, and it brings people back together, away from their screens and back to the table. Thank you.
So very dynamic, and you clearly delivered emotion, which was great. You made it personal. I guess what I might do to add to it is how it can impact the owner of the game. Like, make it real for someone. If I own a $100 Monopoly board, I could triple that value in 6 months, or it just gives some notion of like how much this could turn into value for the owner. I might add that, but nice job.
Yeah, you great job bringing the energy to the pitch, and really good pitch. It makes me think of my wife's really into puzzles, which I think would also completely fit into this category, because once you do a puzzle, like how many times are you going to do the puzzle? Like maybe another time, right? And we buy really expensive, really nice puzzles, like they're like wooden, carved pieces and stuff. And so while we don't have a network, so this doesn't really like you described, so it hasn't worked as well as we did sounds. Our idea was like to have a puzzle club, and every time we do a puzzle, we like sign our name on the inside of it of like who did the puzzle, and then we gift it to somebody. But rather than just like giving it to them, we're like, no, we're giving it to you, but you have to give it back when you're done, and we'll give you a different one. Like you'll exchange it, and it's never. I don't know if anyone's ever given us one back, but that was it. So, anyway, good job. We got one more. 2 more. All right. Right on time. Perfect.
Hey everyone, my name is Josh, and I'm 20 years old. I go to the University of Texas. I've been playing the trumpet all my life, so this is something that I've devoted a lot of time to. Ever since I came to school, I've been going to open mics, playing in my dorm room. I had a lot of fun doing it, but I'd send emails out to record labels or studios, and I get ghosted, right? Like, I'm just a kid. I don't have enough money to go and get a mic, to build out my album that I've been curating for the past decade. It doesn't really work out that way for me. One thing that I had been thinking was, all these record labels that come and they fund the rock stars of the world, they really miss out on a lot of the grassroots artists of our communities. Like we were chatting about last week with ACL, it's hard for some of these local artists to get out there. So one thing that I was thinking, I'm building out my new album. What if I could raise money from my fans to support me? Like a Series A record label for grassroots artists. So I was looking around, and there's actually this platform called Fan Capital. I signed up for it. I put up a set amount of shares for my album, and I said, hey, if you guys invest in building the opportunity for me to build out this album, you can have a portion of the proceeds. And it went great. I was able to raise enough money to go get a record studio time, build out my album, and then post it online. Did well. All my investors got, their set amount of dividends per share that they purchased. And then I was also scrolling through the platform, and I saw my buddy Jack, who, he's a rock star on the guitar. He was rocking it in Chester my freshman year, and I invested in him. And I was able to see, he, based off of the share that I put in him, he was able to build his own album. And this was able to build out a community of grassroots artists in the Austin area, and overall grow the grassroots scene in most of our biggest cities, support students, and build the future of music. Thank you.
I feel like these were like all like tailor-made pitches for you. Like everything's like creator, music industry. Like,
It might have been.
Yeah.
Pandering?
Right.
No.
I did not tell them to do that.
No, I'm
honestly.
joking.
Yeah. They haven't never done that for anybody else.
It's logical you think of this in Austin, which is obviously a great place for this. I think you have to address the elephant in the room, which is GoFundMe. So that's the first thing that popped into my head, like when's he going to address that? And obviously something about making this music specific or optimized for that particular artist community, because that's the first question that any investor would ask you. How do you, because these platforms exist in some form or another, how do you compete with those?
Yeah, I thought the pitch was great and compelling, and I think a lot of people want that. I also was like thinking, I invested in Royal, which is in this space as well, if you look at royal.io. And the other thing is just like, it's hard, because there's a lot of rights, and like with Royal, they could only do streaming royalties. That's the only thing they could get access to sell. So, but big cool problem. So, one more.
Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Rahul, and my God, do I hate tourism. I swear, every time it's so much planning, and then when I go to Buckingham Palace for the Vatican, huge line, so many people, and the locals look at me like I'm trash. But recently, this summer, I went to England to visit my little, and he showed me around some beautiful spots, the Peaks District. He showed me this nice pie little restaurant that he had at his college in Sheffield, and I felt really at home. So later on, I had a trip where I was going to Colorado. And I was like, man, said to my homie who was there with me, I really wish I had a homie here that we could just go with and he could show us all the underground spots, you know? And he said, wait, check this out. He showed me this service. There was Alex, who liked underground spots like street art, skating. There was Lily, who liked vegan restaurants and record shops. First thing I said was, why are you on dating apps again? Like, come on, we can't be doing this. And he said, no, hold up. Check this out. He booked a 3-hour, $75 wander for us. And I said, what is this? What are we getting into? And I was proven wrong. We went to such crazy vegan restaurants. I picked up a fresh John Coltrane album at the record shop that she took us to. And it was a great experience. I felt like a local. I didn't have to wait in any lines. I didn't have to have people looking at me like, oh yeah, he's from Austin. So come join me and help people wander around, minimize planning, and cultivating experience. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, good job. I think it's, I bet there's a lot of people that'll do that. I think, I think Airbnb is like spreading into experiences too, which is probably a good sign that like there's something to this. Yeah, I think it's interesting. To make it really exciting as something to invest in or be a business, you gotta like somehow differentiate from all those other things.
Really good energy. Like, you jumped in and like very expressive. That sort of, I think, definitely caught my attention, which is great. And I think one of your central themes was you sort of combine different people with different interests into a sort of like a joint, a wander that pleases them all. Is that kind of the thing? I feel like that needs to be underlined more. Like I think the centerpiece of the idea is that you assemble people who have different interests, but you make one experience that works for all of them. I don't know, I felt like it could have been surfaced more, because that seems like your theme, you know?
Cool. All right, thank you so much. We are gonna switch over to the demos. We're about 30 minutes in, and so we'll do another round of demos. Do we have people signed up for demos? All right. So the demos are made similar. It's about 5 minutes, so we get a little bit more time to, thanks, a little better. A little more time to look at it. And the requirements are that they built it since last week, and they're generally taking ideas that they heard people pitch. It doesn't have to be their idea, it could be somebody else's, and turning it into some kind of something they can prototype or try out. We've got a range of students in the class. Tim was asking me before the class. This class is cross-listed in computer science, engineering, fine arts, management, and communications. And so we have all kinds of different students in the class. Probably about half of them are technical in engineering or computer science, and about half of them aren't. And so some people have coded many times before, and some have never coded before. Some are coding in Claude and more advanced programming tools. A lot are using Lovable and Replit and other very accessible tools that are designed for people that may not have programmed before. But everything should have been done in the past week.
Hello, my name's Shivansh, and this week I worked on a project related to 3D modeling. So increasingly we're seeing democratized access to 3D printers and people being able to manufacture their own designs. So I built something that would allow people to design their own products. So for example, I can go to create here. Let's say I want to make modern headphone holder, and I can generate a design in the form of an image first. So it's loading, and this uses Nano Banana, and it creates a little headphone holder here. And let's say I want to make that into a 3D model. I can also iterate on it that I'll show in a second, but this is the headphone holder I see. And so I'm going to go ahead and generate a model out of it. I have this thing that's loading, and in a second it'll pull in the model after cursor is done talking to Hugging Face. But basically it's going in and looking at this image and it's trying to generate a 3D representation of it. That way the user can go on and export it and put it into a slicing software. That way they can 3D print it. So sorry, this will take a second. There's a lot of like computation going on in the background. But you can see like the image I created earlier. It's made a 3D object out of it and I can download it. Another thing I can do is I made this into sort of a media marketplace where users can upload their designs that they've created. So we see a bunch here, and I don't really like this one, so I'm gonna remix this design. And I wanna change the version, so I'm gonna tell it to replace the Alabama logo with a UT one. We're almost there, yeah. So I'm creating another iteration on this one, and just give it a second, and it should create a new image that replaces the logo. Oh, I put UT instead of University of Texas, but when I put in University of Texas, it throws in the Longhorn, and I won't bore you with the 3D model generation step, but I can do that on this one too.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great job. What does Hugging Face do in this role?
So Hugging Face hosts a lot of models, and so there's one lab that put out a model that lets you take images and transform them into 3D models, and so I'm using that one and connecting it with another API from Google so that I can generate like a 3D model that someone can print out.
Awesome. And what's your major?
I'm a physics major.
Got it. And you were using Cursor. Have you used Cursor much before?
Just in this class for the Slack clone.
Yeah, but you must have to program for physics, right?
Yeah, but mainly data science. I haven't done any web dev or anything before.
Cool.
So,
Awesome. All right, thanks.
Sorry, just 1 second.
That's okay. While she's setting up, lots of great pitches today. A lot of the people I saw pitching today, and we'll see with the demos, were people I've seen pitch before, which is great. I do want to remind everybody that, so this is I think it's meant to be a pretty easy class to pass. Like, it's a pass-fail class, so you have to come. That's one of the first requirements. You have to be here. But then you basically have to get, and I didn't even do any today, actually. I have to remember that. I have to go back. Anjali, you're supposed to remind me to give thumbs ups. I gave no thumbs ups today. And you didn't give out the $100. Man, we're like totally forgetting everything. All right, you need to think about who gets the $100.
Now or then?
Well, normally I give it out already, but you have some time to think about it now.
Yeah.
So you think about it. And then I'm supposed to be giving out thumbs up for demos. For demos and pitches. And everybody in the class to pass has to get 1 thumbs up over the whole semester for a pitch or a demo. It doesn't matter, either one. So and to get a thumbs up, you basically have to impress me. That's the bar. And so it gets a little harder over the course of the semester. But there's a bunch of people that I don't think have gotten a thumbs up yet or haven't pitched yet. So just a reminder, like, don't leave it till the end. Like, you should be pitching next week. Like, come pitch or demo something next week. And because I want everyone to pass. This should not be a hard class to pass. And sounds like we're ready. As I'm rambling. All right, great.
Hi everyone, my name is Lily, and I'm showing a demo of Josh's pitch from last week. So here we go. The app is called Rally, and Josh wanted to be able to find out, who he knew in a city that he was traveling to when he was traveling for work or going somewhere for an event. So here we go. This is my home page. This is where I can see my location, and then I have one friend added, and I can see her location too. I based this kind of similar to like the Snapchat Snap Map because I just like that model. And then here I'll show you, so at the top is the import contacts, and Josh mentioned that it was important that he didn't have to do a lot of work. It doesn't import contacts from the computer, but if this were a mobile app, it would be able to connect to my contacts and do that. So I also have here at the bottom, you can just add a manual contact just in case, because not everyone that you want on here is going to be using the app. And so in case they haven't, you can just add them manually. And I will show you, this is my friend, this is her profile. It shows me her hometown, where she is right now, and then Josh mentioned he wanted to remember the last time that he had met up with these people. So here I can see that I met up just 2 days ago in Austin with her, and if I wanted to change the date to today, if it was more recent, I would be able to do that here. So, oh, and then here you can filter them by city. If I type in Austin, it won't do anything since they're both from Austin, but if I had more friends, it would have. And then this is where I'm gonna add friends if I wanna do that. Here is the messaging. So back onto here, you can see that I've added like a wave feature. This was based off of the app House Party, if anyone remembers what that is. So if you click wave, the point of it is to just kind of like nudge your friends to say, here, I'm coming to your city, planning to visit soon. Here is our messages. And you can see in our history that I just waved earlier today, and then I just waved again, I'm coming to your city. And so this makes it possible and easier for us to plan. So here are my events. These are mock events because I originally couldn't connect it to my Gmail and Google Calendar, which was working well before today. So I had to add these 2 mock events for myself, which I just did here. This scan button is going to scan my email and calendar, but like I mentioned, that has been really finicky. But earlier today, when it was working, it pulled these 2 trips. This one was in my email from a flight confirmation, and then this one was just in my Google Calendar. I can show, there's my trip. And this is a new one, so I did a fake hotel reservation to my email with all of the information. And so once I scanned it, it popped up here. I gave it, the option to approve or reject if it has the correct information or not, an edit button too. So hopefully I can approve this. It'll show up right here in my reservations. Another feature at the top, I did location visible, or you can turn it off, because in Find My Friends, it's much more complicated than that to just turn off your location. So if you're like not, you can basically just turn it on only when you're traveling if you wanted to do it that way. So let's see if I have anything else. Profile picture, hometown, the integration.
This is awesome.
Yeah, I think this
How
is...
does it know where you are when it said like she was in Austin now?
So right now it's just using like location services, which I approved the first time I opened it.
Oh, on your phone.
Well, it's on my computer right now, but
okay.
Yeah, if it were the app on my phone, I would have to approve it similar to like Life 360, that you allow to see your location all the time. So this is the other account of my friend, and you can see, of course, my computer is in Austin, so I can't change them.
Yeah.
But you can see.
This is awesome. You totally nailed it. Like, you got so many of the features and like little things I had talked about. One of the things, and I mean, usually it's hard for like me to like say something and then you even like, for me to even say it right, where you would, be thinking about the same thing I was thinking about. So and you did great. The one place that was a little bit different is, I think, like you said, a lot of the people I don't know well enough that they wouldn't want to just share their location with me, their actual location. So I really just want to know it like to like which city they're in. Like that's enough, right? Mm-hmm. And I was kind of thinking you could tell that from the calendar, from like the emails, from other things too. And then also another thing which you might have done, but like would be like the next thing I'd be thinking about is like when you automatically detect that I'm going to New York, then I want it to like be like, message all these people in New York. Like, like suggest to me, like, here are all the people you've recently, last time you went to New York, you met with all these people. But anyway, this is awesome, like super impressive. Big thumbs up. And thumbs up for the last one too. Tim, you want to say anything?
I'm good. Same. Yeah, it was a lot of work in 1 week. It's amazing.
Did you really do this in 1 week?
I actually made the mistake of starting yesterday, but that's why there's like there's some things that were pretty finicky on Lovable because I'm really unfamiliar with that. So I was using Lovable and then Perplexity to write any code that I might need because there were some mistakes going on.
I think it looks awesome.
Thank you.
Super impressive. What's your major?
Communications.
Awesome. Thanks. we have any other demos? All right. Well, those were great, really good demos. And again, just want to encourage anyone who hasn't had a chance to pitch or demo yet. You know, probably the longer you wait, it gets a little bit more intimidating, but it shouldn't. And the more you do it, the less intimidating it'll be, and the easier it'll be. So, yeah, come up here and try. Those were awesome, and it's great to have such a big room. Thanks to everyone else for being here today. We're just about halfway done, and this is what we do every week. And we just kind of iterate on it, and everyone's basically, if you think about it, over the course of the semester, they're just getting a lot of reps, a lot of practice, getting up in front of people, pitching their ideas, building stuff, seeing it works, iterating through it, and I think that's, in my experience, you know, just even from the past 15 years of teaching, I think that's really, really valuable to students right now. Like, as far as like, those were my big takeaways was just maybe working on one thing the whole semester wasn't as productive as actually getting to think it through from beginning to the end over and over and over again. And that's what we're kind of playing with this semester. So that was the list of our speakers. Oh, it was Alex Moore last week, not Brett. But Brett was the week before that. Go back to the list of speakers real quick. Yeah, it's really an amazing list of speakers. It's just awesome. Next week we have Bill Perkins here. Bill's so fascinating. He's an incredible entrepreneur and investor, and he is like definitely like bring your pitch game because he will grill you. JD Ross after that also. He's actually one of the founders of Royal. We're pitching the music rights company. So he'll be here. You can ask him about Royal and music rights. And then our last speaker of the semester, Walker Druitt, founder of New Breaks, also took this class a long time ago. And we'll wrap it up with our $1,000 demo day competition at the end. So that's the rest of the semester. 1, 2, 3, 4 more chances to pitch and demo. So hopefully we'll see more of you up here next week. All right, now we get to hear from Tim. So I really appreciate Tim being here. Tim flew in just for this. Thank you. He is an incredible entrepreneur and a good friend of mine. I've gotten to know well, and also recently an investor in his company too. Tim is famous for being the founder of Pandora. Who here used Pandora? Oh wow! Honestly, I wasn't sure because it was 2000 that it was started. But apparently, like more than half the people here, a lot of people have used Pandora. And like I said, for me, that was like the first cool music service, like something different, something that wasn't just like albums and playlists, right? And the idea of like having my own radio station. Oh man, I spent so much time trying to teach Pandora like exactly what I wanted to listen to, you know, like just perfectly fine tuning it. So yeah, super cool. And yet again, that was 2000. And like, I thought that was AI. I don't know. I'm kind of curious what you're gonna say. You know, like to me, that was like one of the first real AI products I ever even used or thought about. Like something that like predicted what music I wanted, and like automatically suggested things. And then obviously, lots of stories and learnings through that process, up through becoming such a successful music service. And now he's still in the, I think he would describe that as coming from the creator economy, which is part of why so many of the pitches today were so coincidentally relevant and interesting. And he's thinking a lot more about that now, so we'll get a chance to talk about that too. So he's going to come up. He'll give you the. I don't know. We talked about a bunch of things you can do, so I don't want to make myself wrong by predicting it. But he's got some prep slides, which you already have, and your mic should be working. And I'm going to hand it off to you.
Cool, great, thank you. Thanks, Josh. Nice to be here. I think actually just after listening to all you guys and thinking about sort of where you are in your lives right now and thinking about starting startups, that I should start just telling you a little bit about the sort of Pandora startup experience, because I think one of the things that happens in this world is you read about all the success and glory of startups, and rarely do you hear about kind of all the what's below the waterline, because very, very few startups kind of go up and to the right from the day they're launched. It's really quite the opposite, and Pandora was no exception. So I just want to tell you that story. That sort of thumbnail of that story, and I'm happy to sort of answer questions about it. But I think even though it was a quarter century ago, fuck, it's a long time, I think a lot of the things that happen to us are, are relevant now as they were then. The technology's changed and so on, but the human part of this, I think, is very much the same. The challenges of being in a startup are very similar, and I think the decision-making, team building, all kind of stuff, it's timeless. So hopefully you'll find it informative. Again, if at any point while I'm speaking, if you want to interrupt me, just raise a hand or start talking, I'll stop and answer any questions. And then afterwards, there's another idea I'm incubating that I guess I'll sort of quasi-pitch to you. I threw my slides together also like 3 hours ago for that, so I'll just walk you through that, and it might be something you might want to sink your teeth into as one of your projects for Josh. Just by way of background, I'm a Stanford undergrad. I'm a musician by trade. All my life I've loved music, played music. But I was a poli-sci major at Stanford, which is Stanford's shortest major. You can basically major in poli-sci by accident at Stanford, which is actually what happened. My junior year, I was trying to figure out to declare, and I discovered I almost had a major in poli-sci, so I declared poli-sci. And when I graduated, no real employment potential for me. Poli-sci is not a very sort of great for vocation, but I wanted to play music, so my first job after college, I was a nanny. Actually, manny is the technical term if you're male. So for 5 years, I actually took care of a couple kids. Kids is my sort of lifelong passion. And I spent the rest of my days, time during my day, playing music. I'm a pianist by trade, and also just kind of absorbing all the evolution of technology happening around then. I would get up at 9, 10 in the morning, play music piano till 2 or 3, go pick up these 2 kids and hang out with them and play with other kids in the neighborhood, and then go back and back to music in the evening. Got more and more into it, started playing in bands, eventually left that job, started touring. So I was a working musician for a long time. Actually, South by Southwest was one of our things we always wanted to get into but never got invited to. But I sort of lived the life of a working musician. Of course, the gentleman was talking about the crowdfunding. That was near and dear to me. Was part of this sea of working musicians, all of whom were kind of struggling, in obscurity, trying to sort of get seen. And so I kind of lived that firsthand, and that was sort of the beginning of the inspiration for Pandora. How do you help all these folks that no one heard about find an audience? Segued into film composing for a while, for a few years, and that's where the idea for Pandora began. Really, when you're a film composer, you're thinking a lot about a film, trying to sort of please a film director. And so I would sit with a director to figure out the score, and I'd bring a bunch of CDs, remember those? And we'd play songs back and forth for each other, have this conversation about it, and ultimately I'd walk away with some sort of taxonomy of what they wanted, like an idea in my head, like musicologically translating they weren't typically musicians, so I would go back and be able to write music that sort of fit what they wanted. So I started thinking a lot about, what makes a song, why does it sound the way it does, and why do we like it, which led to this thing called the Music Genome Project, which was the kernel of Pandora. The idea was to literally break down music into its component parts. And we eventually had 420 of them, and we hired a large team of musicians to sit down and listen to songs and manually score them. Element by element for an entire song, so 420 attributes per song. It's hard to imagine that now. And then built sort of an algorithm around that would literally compute distance using kind of like a nearest neighbor analysis from one song to another. So you type in the song and it would find something that sounded similar. And the sort of central characteristic of that was that it was completely blind to popularity. So unlike all the other recommender systems, so if you're not an established musician, you never wind up on someone's recommended list, right? It's like you have to be successful to be successful. And so this was the one way to, you launch a station with Bruce Springsteen, and you'd hear a song by an artist who is similar, but you'd never heard before. That was kind of the idea. The idea, we hatched it in 2000, raised about $1.5 million from some angel investors, and this is 2000, so the dot-com year is just beginning. This is like Amazon's only a couple years old. The commercial web is just hitting. there's a lot of euphoria around
But
it.
2000 was also kind of the crash.
Yes, 3 weeks after we raised money, that whole thing went off a cliff. Literally, we raised it like the first week of March, and I think the end of March 2000 is when it literally just vanished. And all of a sudden, all these big high-flying .com companies that had raised enormous amounts of money were crashing. All the investing community, venture investing was drying up. And we went into like this nuclear winter of technology sort of development. And the money that we'd raised lasted us about a little over a year. In the second year of the company, we began paying our employees a smaller and smaller share of their salary in cash. We called that salary deferral at the time, which it turns out is illegal in California. We've learned that later on. But about 50 people worked without salary for 2.5 years, from 2001 to 2004.
Sorry, how does that happen?
It's a little bit, there's a lot of things that go into that actually taking place. One is, we actually had a pretty cool idea, and we had a demo that was pretty magical, and everybody thought, man, this is something. Like, I don't know what the business is going to be, but we're doing something unique and important. And
So
we need to
number
keep
one,
it.
they believed.
Yeah, that's the first thing. You have to have something that inspires people. The second thing is kind of I think sort of a human psychology, which is, if you start to defer salary, you work, okay, I'll do it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Okay, now the company owes me like $25,000, and I've put a lot of time and effort into this, and it's hard to say at some point, okay, you know what? Shit, I made a mistake. I'm gonna like push back from the table and leave the casino. Because it's very hard to give up and sort of admit to yourself, I screwed up. This guy Tim's kind of a shyster. I'm out of here. And so you're kind of locked in a little bit. Not everybody was, obviously. We had about 200 people when we started, but went down to 50. And then I think it was also not an easy time to get another job because everybody else was struggling. So there wasn't like sort of a huge amount of employment outside of Pandora. But people stuck around. I mentioned earlier I pitched to Pandora 348 times, and I know because I wrote them on my calendar. And by the end of 2003, I had 11 maxed out credit cards. And I think I owed like $500,000 of personal debt to friends and family. Basically anybody who had the misfortune of meeting me during that time. I was begging for money all the time. I was in the ER 3 times for chest pains. I had insomnia. I was up at 2 or 3 in the morning with cold sweats for month after month after month.
So it wasn't fun?
No, it was fucking awful. It was unbelievably stressful. And it was kind of extreme but it's not super uncommon for, startups to wind up in this situation. You experience basically constant rejection, and it's grueling. And I think what is probably one of the most psychologically difficult parts about it is it's like climbing a mountain. You have absolutely no idea how far you have to go. And
nobody knew they were deferring their salary for 2.5 years.
That's correct, right?
It was 2 more months.
That's right. Exactly. Just 1 more month. Just a little bit longer, we'll get there. And that's psychologically very demanding. That is so fundamentally what a startup is. Like you go into it and you have no idea. In fact, statistically, it's highly, highly unlikely you will succeed. If you want to make money, that's the worst thing you can do is do a startup, just mathematically. But that's not why we do it, right? It's not because we think this is a sure thing. You do it because there's something you have a passion for, and you have a desire to create something, and be your own boss, and all these other things. If you go into it to make money, you'll have a very hard time surviving what will surely be the tough times. But just because it's hard, and people around you think you're crazy, which believe me, people did, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it. And when I think back about sort of that experience, and when people ask me, should I do this, should I try this startup, my perspective on it is that you can try something and fail, and you'll have regret. But that regret you can get past, right? You start something else, it fades into history. The regret that I think is very hard to outlive is, oh man, I could have done that, but I didn't. That sits with you, forever, basically. So I'm kind of always like, yeah, shit, just do it. Because you might lose some time, maybe some hair, you know, some sleep for sure, but you'll never have the regret of not having tried. We, after the 340th pitch, we managed to raise some dough, $9 million. I'm still not, actually the reason we raised it, because the investor was a drummer. They're not quite right in the head in the first place. But he wanted in, he wasn't one of the people trying to say no. He wanted to make a music investment, and we got kind of lucky. Although I got pretty good at pitching at that point, because I'd done it so much. But paid everybody back. Out of that $9 million, $2.5 million went out the door immediately, which is unheard of in venture investing as well. We had an all-hands meeting where I literally, and every time I said it, I get goosebumps. We sat down with the team around me. No one knew the round had been closed, and I pulled out of my back pocket a giant wad of envelopes, and I just handed out $2.5 million to all these employees. I thought they were never going to see that again. That was a wonderful moment. And then we went from that to like, actually we were not Pandora yet as a company. We were still trying to figure out what to do with this music genome project. Took money in, hired more people, pivoted the business, and then launched Pandora about 9 months later, and then just went whoosh, like, and literally it feels like in a matter of like months, but it was a few years. We had 100 million listeners, and we had 2,000 employees, 50 offices.
So just to put a fine point on it, you raised $10 million for the Music Genome Project.
Yes.
For a research project.
Exactly, yeah.
You didn't really even know the business model.
We didn't have a product. We were losing money. Not only were we losing money, I was being sued personally by half a dozen employees for having violated the California Labor Code. Actually, if you want to not pay people, Oakland is the worst place to do that. It's super aggressive on which is fine. I'm all supportive of that. But I could have gone to jail, actually. Fortunately, a lawyer did some pro bono work for me to help me through that. We settled somehow we got through it, but they invested even with that. So we had no business raising money, but we still did. And then had that wonderful experience then of launching a product that had perfect timing. We were like the first or second music app on the iPhone. If you can imagine that. When it launched, there were like us and AOL Music. That was it.
Can we dig in on that for a second?
Yeah.
Because I find a lot of times when a company really explodes, when it has a moment, there's an inflection point that allowed that to happen. And so you might have just kind of hit on it, maybe you can talk more, but like with Uber, you couldn't have had Uber before Uber because there was no GPS on the phone. And so the phone didn't know where it was, you couldn't call an Uber. Like the whole thing didn't work without GPS. And so like suddenly we had GPS and suddenly you could do that, right? Was it the iPhone? Like what was it?
No, broadband penetration in the home. Yeah, so it reached 50%.
Right, I wasn't listening on my phone.
Yeah, it was, streaming audio was kind of crappy until like 2004.
This was going from dial-up to ISDN and cable modems.
That's right, yeah. Low quality audio, unreliable, and so when it coincides with broadband penetration. And interestingly though, there were hundreds of music streaming services when we launched, and some big ones, Microsoft and AOL, all the people had them. But what we did, and I think this is something for everybody to think about as you build these products, we created a really simple solution to a hard problem. So the problem for Pandora was, okay, if it's morass of music on the web, you have no idea how to navigate it, how can you simply do that for someone? And it was just type in a song and you're done. And it was the Music Genome Project that enabled that, right? Without that, it was hard to have this cold start with a song. You need more than that, but with the Music Genome, you didn't. So, literally overnight, I think when we had the beta, actually, we gave password protected access to Pandora to our first, 50 of our closest friends and family, just to kind of kick the tires and give us feedback. And they said, do not share your passwords with anybody. And like after 2 weeks, there was like 10,000 people using it, which was great because it meant our friends who had betrayed us, yes, but they wanted to tell people about it, which is a sign of virality, which is what we're all seeking. And so, yeah, it went from there to just took off, and all of a sudden, seemed like all of a sudden we were, just growing like a weed, 100,000 new people a day. Then the App Store phenomenon hit, connected cars, and we just rode that wave. And then went public in 2011. And all this was a deeply out-of-body experience for me at that point, because what we'd already experienced was just so far from that. Before going public, we did what's called a roadshow, where you go out and, we met with a bunch of bankers, all of whom wanted to be the bankers for our public offering, so they would be the ones that would take us out. So lucrative business for investment bankers. And so they basically wine and dine you to try and convince you to pick them, all the big banks. And I was at an event in Las Vegas for Joe, the CEO, and myself, hosted this is part of their courtship, and it was like, middle of the night, I was at this table, this luxury Vegas penthouse suite next to the buffet, and there was this like giant mound of truffle-infused Kobe beef burgers. They were delicious. And I had an expensive glass of red wine in my hand, and it was like almost 12, and I thought for sure like at midnight there was gonna be this like puff of smoke. And I'd like find myself, at McDonald's with a Coke, like looking at my credit card bill, I'm lucky we succeeded, and that's really what's the amazing thing about startups is you have the potential to do that, to go in and do this crazy thing that has very little chance of success, that you care a lot about, and you just muscle through it, and then if it works, there's nothing like that in the world, to have built this thing and have it turn into something that makes it all worthwhile. One sort of message I'll underline again and again from the reminding me of it today is how important it is to be able to present your ideas in a compelling way. There's no single skill that's more important, I think, in startups than communication. Being able to speak and get people excited about what you're doing. That could be an investor, an employee, a business partner, someone trying to license from, like having the power, of persuasion. That is like, and if you don't have it yourself, maybe that's just so far outside your wheelhouse. Co-found your company with someone who does. Every founding team needs an orator. I really think that's true. And I learned over time with investment, with venture capitalists, it's a performance. And what they want to believe in the idea and see that it's a big potential idea, but they also want to hang out with you. Like literally, do I want to be with that person? Does it excite me to spend time with them? That's the subconscious thing that's going on when you're pitching people. I really believe that. And I spent some time as a venture capitalist myself. It wasn't for me, but I did it for a couple of years. And I was conscious of it because I'd been on the other side of the table. But it was so clear to me that I was looking at the person. When I got excited about an investment, I would reflect back on it and think, why? Because I fell in love with that person. Yes, the idea was cool, but the truth is investors are you can't really diligence something all that well in an hour or two, or even with some background research. You just can't do it. It's kind of a guess, an educated guess at best. But you bet on the human being. And the only way to get good at presenting is to do it over and over and over again, ad nauseum. And this is what Josh is doing here. Every college should have this exercise of preparing a pitch. It's invaluable, and nobody does it anymore. It's just amazing to me how few schools. I think every undergraduate university should have public speaking as to be a required 4-year program for everybody, because even if you don't wind up being in a startup, it's still going to serve you well no matter what you do. So, as you're doing this, and Josh is saying, "Come on, you got to do it," you're like, "Oh shit, I hate doing this." It is the most valuable thing I think you could do for your career. So lean into it. Practice, and it'll pay dividends. So, anyways, that's kind of the quick thumbnail of Pandora history. I don't know if you want to.
So, before we open it up to everybody else, can you now just reframe? It's 2025. You're a college student, and you're like, I want to go build Pandora. What would be different? How would you think about that now?
Yeah.
Because you're not hiring musicians, or maybe you're hiring one. To go classify the music, you want a musician programmer. How would you think about that?
Well, so I'm doing some startups now, and it's what feels very different is back when I was doing it, the idea was you'd create a team. That was the first thing. Okay, how do I bring a team together? The team being not just the founders, but it's technical. There's some product development, marketing kind of thing. I just don't think that's the way you do it now because you can prototype so quickly and easily. It's more about
as we're also seeing in this class.
Yes,
Right.
yes, exactly. Case in point. If you have an idea, you have the opportunity to very inexpensively, almost freely, try it out and try different versions of it and test it. And you also have the chance during that time in a light touch way to get to know people, different developers, different potential longer term kind of partners for you. So it's both a chance to test your idea and to test people. So in one of the companies I'm doing right now, I've been working with a handful of developers all around the world. And it's like dating for a few months, and they produce an enormous amount of work, and you get to know them. So I think I wouldn't codify a team quickly. I would wait to go through that process, and then when you feel like you have your sort of momentum, and you know people, and you're ready. Okay, now we're something. We can turn this into a business. So yeah, I mean, Pandora, you wouldn't hire 100 musicians to sit in a room with. We literally pen and paper. They were writing numbers down to do this analysis. Of course, now with AI, I think AI can basically do full-blown digital signal analysis now very accurately. Although
and probably identify characteristics you weren't looking at.
Yeah, but the truth is now, I think we're headed towards a place where it's generating new music. That's kind of the new movement, right? And some of the stuff's pretty remarkable. I hate to say it, but it is. Yeah. So yeah.
So I'm one of my friends is CardioClean.co, and I have a problem. I'm 51, and when I want to teach a spin class, I look for the younger generation's music because most people aren't into the lack of all of the extra things added to today's music, and just the youngins are really good at finding a really fun playlist. And so like with Spotify, you can actually maybe look at a cycle brand's like Ride, and maybe you'll find some instructors' playlists. But I just wondered if you had a solution to that as Pandora, or if there's something else you would say, like if you somehow categorize music.
What are people of a certain demographic listening to?
Well, if you go to a spin class, don't you want to hear like really current, crazy music that gets you really going instead of like...
No, I want to hear old ladies music, but...
Well, I'm 80s too. Okay, good. You can come to my classes then and like them.
Yeah, I don't, the B2B side of these services, Pandora never really flourished where you could like give a business a different way to interact with the catalog, which that would be the sensible way to do it, to go in and be able to kind of say, hey, I'm a spin instructor, we were using like funeral homes and all sorts of places, but that was never, it was never a big enough business. So I don't have an answer to your question with Pandora, and I am not involved with it anymore, to be clear. Like, I left in 2017, so I have no connection to it anymore, but yeah, we don't solve it, yeah.
Like over the years, what were some of the biggest reasons you found for customers churning, and what were like the best strategies to prevent that?
Well, we made one giant strategic mistake for us, which was we were very late to do on-demand listening. So in 2000, like kind of 9, 10, 11, our core business, the radio, was growing really, really rapidly, and we were surrounded by success, which can be a problem because you get a little more confident. Radio listenership had historically been 85–90% of music consumption, and it still is actually. Most music listening is passive; it's not like individually curated. That's true on Spotify as well. But what we didn't understand is even if on-demand listening is not a huge part of your listening, you still want to be able to do it and to do all of that on one service. And Spotify had that.
And on-demand is just play this song.
Yeah, I want this song right now. The thing in music that is tricky about that is when you're a radio service, when you can't pick the songs, you can satisfy the licensing requirements by just going through what's called a statutory license, which is a centralized federal license that gives you it's like one piece of paper you sign and you get the right to everything. When you do on-demand listening, you need direct permission from every single rights holder, so all the labels one at a time. And at that time, they were very sort of anti-digital music, certainly anti-Pandora. we were kind of the lightning rod for a lot of industry hate about digital music. Actually, me personally, I had 3 death threats during my time. I had 24/7 security for like 2 years, become tied to that issue, believe it or not. But and so we were late to make that change. And there's a concept called the innovator's dilemma, which you might have heard about. This guy named Clay Christensen is a Harvard professor, wrote about this, which is when your company starts to have success and grow, it's hard to like reinvent yourself and change things because what's working. And we were like only a few years old when we had that problem. Like we couldn't realize, oh, we're about to get disrupted. Very long answer to your question, but that's why we started churning. And we were at that point, it took us a long time to get licenses, and then we had identified as a radio product, and then we were a public company, so we were really constrained, and we had to worry about profitability, so it was hard to kind of reinvent yourself, and yeah, we got taken out, so yeah.
If you could do it again, what would be different, and what was the response from artists? And you're an artist, I mean, you're exactly you came from an artistic background. What was the real response from artists? What was the feedback you were getting? And lastly, in terms of data ownership, where do you see the future of that within the music industry? And from your perspective, at the place you're at right now, how are you going to be a part of that future?
So I'll try to remember all those. So it's all right. So the response to Pandora changed over time. So it was very positive, and we were doing a lot for independent. We played like 75% unsigned music on our, and so we did a lot of positive, and we were driving sales, but then the traditional industry, large labels, began to have trouble with us, and so there was a lot of like press campaigns and effort to also position us as an adversary, and that poisoned our relationship with the industry. So then it got negative for a few years. Then we signed licensing deals and became an on-demand service. Then it got kind of reformed. So I'd say the last few years I was there, it became very positive, but it was kind of up and down. And as to like what's going on right now, I mean, it's hard to see around the corner with AI, because these large streaming services, I don't actually know at Pandora, but I know at Spotify, they are investing in creating their own music with AI because it's free, right? One of the problems now with large streaming services is their business models benefit enormously through synthetic music because they can make it themselves and it's royalty free. And for I think a lot of I think it's like 25-30% of the music on Spotify is AI now, something like that. And there are genres where you can't tell the difference. So when you're a public company and you're at profitability, like the fastest way to raise your stock price is to lower your costs. And so it is inevitable that they are going to increase the supply of that. And that in turn, I think, puts downward pressure on the value that labels can demand, artists can demand of the services. With AI music, it's very hard I don't feel like I have a crystal ball about where that's going to go. I do think that for artists, more and more is going to be about live experience. People have been saying that for a while, but I think live and building around live is going to be the sort of most critical part of an artist's career. And my own involvement in it now is I'm watching. Hello Creator is designed to help people in the creator economy more broadly manage that experience, but that's being completely, I'm just telling Josh who's investing in it, like we're figuring out, we may be pivoting because, the quantity of content that is AI now, it's growing fast. And it's changing what it even means to be a creator. So, yeah.
And what about what we
Let's get some other questions in. Just come back now. So, what behaviors, habits, or principles would you recommend a founder in the 0 to 1 phase develop?
That's a a great question. The question was what behaviors or habits would you advise a founder to develop in the 0 to 1 phase? So communication, like those skills, actually critical. And I think that the second thing is, maybe it's a characteristic, but it's not a sprint, and you have to sort of embrace for yourself that you are about to enter a chapter of your life, and it's going to be kind of crazy, uncertain. It may fail, but you'll learn a ton, and it will enrich your life, and maybe you'll have success, but accept that as a reality, and don't think you can like white knuckle it through it, like work 100-hour weeks and just keep going and chasing after the trophy, because you'll just burn out. Find a sustainable existence, develop good friendships, hopefully you have a supportive spouse or, a significant other, cultivate that, stay healthy, eat well, like simple, sleep enough, like that's actually really important, because otherwise it'll just wear you down too fast. Hire very, very carefully, and I should say sort of unemotionally. I think one problem founders do is they hire friends, because they like each other, and that's not enough. And in fact, it can be hard in friendships. You need to hire people who have just complementary skills to you, not people who you overlap with, because that'll create friction.
I often tell the story of I hired all my friends, then I fired all my friends. It's way better to become friends with the people you work with than to work with the people you're friends with.
Yeah, I had 3 co-founders at Pandora. One left after a year and a half, one after 4, and those were hard things to go through. Cycling out founders. So they were friends. Yeah. Well, one was a friend and a friend of his. So yeah, that was all a big mess. Yeah.
So I'm currently building teams and building a company alongside it, and I ask like everybody who comes to this class the same question. I want to ask you that as well. I think we covered a little bit of it, but when that big break was for you, like whenever you got your funding after the series and some of the pictures, you mentioned you had like a great demo. What was your team like at that time? Like, did you have multiple technical people? Like, you had yourself obviously. Like, what was that team like during that moment?
When we got the money?
Yeah.
So.
Like when you were pitching or whatever. Yeah.
So we had a dozen engineers, about 20 musicians, and then a smattering of like marketing, sysad, types, product folks. And at that point, they were all exhausted. Like, the truth is that even after we raised all that money, and I described that meeting we had, it wasn't like there were loud cheers and hooray. I was like, got my money. Now I can go home and hold my head up, And a lot of the people at that point actually left, didn't stay, which may sound surprising, but they just had completely run out of steam for this idea, and they need to change. So, yeah.
You mentioned you qualified major at Stanford, but that didn't help too much financially. I was wondering, for college students today, what would you recommend us major in or focus on to have the best chance at building a startup in the future?
I think you should major in college in the thing you just love to do. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, vocational, if you're going to be a doctor or something very specific, just like fall in love with something, because that'll make you intellectually stimulated, creative, happy. You'll meet more. Like it'll cultivate goodness you'll become sort of good things will be attracted to you. Don't like try and sort of okay, I think this is what I need to do to get here. I think that's a really dangerous choice, because one, you could look back and say, oh damn, I wish I'd done something else in college. And it's very hard, especially now, I think, to predict what skill, like think of software development, is going to lead you where you want to go to. I think it's much safer to just find something you're passionate about. And by the way, that's what will also create ideas, right? There's a communications major building something. You said that there are people from textiles and all sorts of crazy things. That's where ideas can pop up from, Yeah.
What kept you motivated during the startup stage?
The truth is that I just had to. That's the truth. I never lost my belief in the power of the idea. That was always there. And we had this amazing demo. It wasn't a radio. It was a little search box. You type in a song, and it could be 5 of the songs. And God damn it, it was amazing. It would pull up 5 songs. You wouldn't know half of them, and they'd all sound pretty similar. And interestingly, these venture capitalists who all turned us down. When we were pitching them, we'd give them password protected access to it. And they'd turn us down and say, but can I keep my access to that demo you created? Fuckers. Yeah, so that, but the truth is, like, I had no choice. Like, I was tied to the mast because I was gonna go, I would do it until I dropped dead, almost. Yeah.
Do you have any advice on inspiring people, whether they're co-founders or early employees, when they can't be paid and everyone has to work hard hours and it's really tough and future is uncertain?
Could everybody hear that question? Yeah. This is communication, like what I talked about. Being able to motivate people is communication, and there's not like a trick to it. There's not like a say this thing or that thing. It's can you convey? Can you just can you convey passion, and can you create affinity for people, for you? They want to follow you, and it sounds crazy, but practice public speaking, because it'll bleed into all those things that you do. And I think obviously you are the conveyor of the core idea, so presumably the idea you want to do is something you really care about, and you have your language around what makes that exciting, and you should be good at communicating that. But yeah, I mean, there's no substitute for just really being able to speak. And that's when I've met a lot of successful entrepreneurs over the years, and every single one of them is a great communicator. I pretty much, that's what they all have in common.
Or like you said, there's one on the team.
What's
Like
that?
when there's
Yeah.
a magic team, like somebody's, it's hard to imagine a company that's been super successful without a great community. I was talking with Mike Maples. He's coming in later this week too. We were talking about his talk later this week, and we were talking about Elon Musk this morning about him saying, is Elon a great communicator or not? And on the one hand, I think there are a lot of people would might think he is not a great communicator, that the words he chooses aren't good, that he causes adverse reactions, maybe were unintended or other things. But in the spirit of him being able to get other people extremely motivated and excited about what he's working on and willing to back him and work their ass off for it, he's one of the best communicators.
He's a
in the world,
master, no
right?
question. You can disagree with his politics and all that kind of stuff. We won't do that here, but he is a master communicator, I think. I will say that when you're leading a team through those kind of adverse, you also have to be honest. So there is communication can kind of get, you can be enthusiastic and positive,
Be credible,
and bullish, and then like, that sounded like bullshit. And you have like a duty to people that you're asking to do something like that, to be honest with them. And so we were never dishonest. I was an evangelist, but that's important too, because people want to trust the person they lead. Yeah. So, and some of these folks definitely play with honesty at times. And I think that's a risky bet. Yeah. Yeah.
I started college in 2002, and I remember Pandora was like, it was a revolution. It was like literally every student had it, and you guys had the best UI UX. It was like ahead of its time, brand-wise and interface. Because you mentioned the pivot when you got the funding, who was your marketing officer? Like, who was behind the brand, the actual delivery of
The designer actually was Dan Lithcott-Hames. He had been trained, a graphic designer, or UI designer, I guess. His gig before that was designing interactive exhibits for children's museums. Like, is there a more perfect training for the internet than that? And in fact, I think, I do think that was a big part of what made Pandora successful, but it was good on the web, but when it got to the phone, then it was really great because it was even simpler. It was like just a single pane, and yeah. I learned that lesson over and over and over again about simplicity. It's less is more. And that's for all the ideas, and to the woman who presented the map thing, I was thinking, okay, how do you make that simpler? Simpler. No like data screens. No, like that to me is the art of building a great product. What you not do. Yeah. We had when you bought Pandora had a buy link, and there were two options when we first launched it. I think it was Amazon and Best Buy maybe. And a lot of music that we played was not available on those two sites. And so we did it with eMusic and added a third option. So eMusic had a much richer catalog. So now there could be buy links on a lot more music. Our overall sales went down because there were 3 choices instead of 2. Like that was like, okay, that's a good example.
So yeah, just emphasizing this. So there was like someone clicked buy, they knew they wanted to buy, and it was like pay with Amazon, pay with this, and then you had to pay with a third choice.
Yeah.
And adding the third button made the total number of conversions drop.
The total number, which is crazy,
Right.
because more things you could buy.
You gave them another way to pay, because more people just bailed. They were like, I'm confused.
2, 3, that's too much. I'm out. Yeah, crazy.
You made a great point about psychologically preparing not to white knuckle it. You also made a point that you reached a point where you had to tie yourself to the mast. How did you personally hold both of those things in some of the chaotic times? How did you manage some of the broader life responsibilities that come up at the same time of trying to lean into a company?
Not very well.
He says that, but he white knuckled.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was so extreme. You know, I had a wonderful girlfriend who's not my wife, who was actually very solidly backing me through that whole time, even as crazy as it was. So I was lucky in that regard. It's hard for it to be okay when it's like that. You know, I didn't have children, I wasn't married, you know, hard for me to imagine. Although interestingly, statistically, founders with kids do better than founders without, which is kind of interesting. I suspect that has something to do with having better balance, you know.
I'm better with my wife.
Your wife?
I'm much better with my wife. Like having a team in a sport, like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, I definitely, like, I see both sides of that, but like, it's harder to balance, but at the same time, like, yeah, like, it's emotionally, like, way better to be part of a family. Yeah.
Should I go to the other thing, or I'm talking a long time?
What's the
out
other
of time.
thing? No, we're not out of time.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw this out there to you youngins and see if this strikes your
No,
fancy.
we don't have to go to a certain time. You have about 20 minutes. If you
Okay.
want.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Okay. So
I am going to use the restroom while you do that.
this is the thing that I'm sort of spending has a lot of my energy right now. And I have a 14-year-old daughter, so it's personal to me as well. And I just think, like, you know, social media is like the most destructive weapon ever invented by mankind, and we're beginning to experience the pain from it. And one of the things that it's doing is destroying relational health. So it's ruining people's, you know, human relationships. It's isolating people, and it's also reducing their ability to form friendships. And this is all becoming, I think, sort of scientifically shown. And so I'm partnering it now with Vivek Murthy, who's a former Surgeon General, for whom this has been kind of his life's work. And the two of us are interested in creating an alternative sort of platform. I'm not sure what the right word for this is, but that could essentially cause people to begin spending less time on what are entirely performative and increasingly artificial platforms that I think are really just bad for people, and finding a way back to developing closer friendships. And I see it in this Hello Creator work when I'm working with creators in the creator economy who are just burning out. It's this giant hamster wheel. I see it, of course, in my daughter and her friends, what's happening. It was interesting, the presentations tonight, there were mentions of being, you know, on Instagram and on Snap and so on. I know it's the common vocabulary, but we all know the hazards of it all. And some statistics, I think, this really hit me on Instagram, that, you know, 7% of content, only 7% comes from people know. So it's not a social network. I mean, it's not even a social network. And more of the stuff that's not of your friends is also from AI. And I think that is going to go to almost 100% in a very short period of time, because AI can create content way faster, way cheaper, and it can be entirely targeted. So it stands to reason that, you know, Facebook Meta is an engagement machine. That's it. Because it's an advertising supported service. So its business depends on engagement. So everything that happens on the site, it's one giant algorithm to get people to engage. And that's why this is beginning to happen, and it's only going to get way worse. how do I advance this? Oh, Anjali, can you advance it? And it's causing loneliness and anxiety, and those have very real impacts on human health, and this has all been documented now. And I was struck by this last statistic, like in what I would think would be the least lonely part of people's lives, you know, the majority of college students feel lonely even when they're surrounded by people. And this should really shock people. It's kind of been a slow boil, so it's not shocking, but we should be very worried about these statistics on here. So anyways, this is more background. Can you skip forward? I saw this, if you read this, Charlie Wardsell, who's a brilliant writer, writes for the Atlantic Monthly. This is I'll give you a second just to read that. It's talking about AI video. So what's happening is there are these channels, I'm sure you guys are maybe more aware than I am, of like AI, streams of AI content, short video, Sora stuff that's starting to get produced, and it's growing and growing. And it's like a narcotic. It's just sort of, it's kind of temporarily satisfying, but there's an infinite supply of it. So, and I just feel like social media is moving more and more in this direction, where it's isolating people. They're connecting more and more with things that are not from their friends or not from humans. And that is just creating, it's almost like a vicious cycle. As you do that, friendships, your friendships become weaker and you become less able to form new friendships. And that's, I think, what's leading to all of this. And the most, it's proven now, the best thing you can do for your health is have strong friendships for all this stuff. And so we need to start doing something to drive it in the other direction. So this is all I got so far. Well, there's more, but the idea is, what if you built an app that was not advertising supported, so for starters, so the premise is not about engagement, and that has sort of three fundamental components. One is a user experience that is completely optimized for friendship. So if all that mattered on this app was your success is cultivating friendship, which, by the way, would hopefully lead to in-person friendship, which is the most valuable type. So how would you imagine an app if that is its goal? It would also have coaching. So there are, like, same as there's sort of best practices for, running a business or, whatnot, there's best practices for friendship too, for intimacy. There are people whose profession is helping coach people, in their relationships. A lot of therapy is about that. So what if this subtle AI can be helpful here? What's the right mechanism for doing this to help people do it better? Can be part of this. And then the third is the logistics of friendship. And there was actually an app tonight about, finding location. Josh is like a super networker. And it's complicated though to meet friends, to schedule all kind of stuff. How could this app then support you that way as well? So if you had perfect knowledge of this person and their friends and so on, how could you make it easy for them to get more in real life opportunities? And how can you do that in an app that is drop dead easy to use? And I use Stoop as a placeholder name because I'm thinking like a front stoop, so the classic, it's a contained space. People can join it, people can leave. It's casual, but it's intimate. How can you sort of replicate that in a digital setting? So that's sort of what we're brainstorming right now, and we're raising some money, which I think we're going to be able to do, and then start prototyping the hell of this thing and see where we can take it. So, anyways, that's what's on my mind.
Is that what's on HelloCreator.com? Or is that
No, that's a completely different thing. Yeah, unrelated.
Okay.
Unrelated, but maybe related. Eventually, yeah. Yeah.
I know I'm not your demographic, but I work with a lot of college students. One thing you might point out, you did point out the stroke and heart attack statistics, but it's also hitting the younger students and younger adults at 30 years old. They probably have a stroke or heart attack.
So actually, when we think about target market for this, I think it's interesting because there are people 30, 40, 50 something are aware of their own addiction to social media, and they often have children, so they have a direct interest in this, and they also have a memory of a time before this. A friend of mine was saying he has a kid who's a teenager, and he said, "Dad, man, I just took a 90s dump." It's like, "What's that?" He's like, "Oh, I went to the bathroom without my phone." And he was also, like, his kid was also looking at his prom, and he noticed that there were, people had no phones. And the kid's like, "Oh, that must have been so cool. You were just talking to we looked at these pictures, you're talking to each other." And so I think that the older generation does have this nostalgia and memory of what it was like and how much, I don't want to be like all utopian about the past, but in this regard, I think we have gotten, as a society, have gotten worse. And kids, interestingly, now see that and they see, oh, that's healthier. And I had a moment, like, some number of months ago, my daughter was with 3 friends in a frozen yogurt shop, and they were sitting around a table, 4 of them, and we were chatting, and they were chatting, and one of the girls, 3 girls had no phone, and 1 had a phone. And they were talking, and I noticed the girls on the end, and they were talking, she was like this, "Yeah, huh?" She was like glancing at her phone all the time. She wasn't there. It literally wasn't there mentally. And it just hit me like, oh my God, this life is passing her by. The other 3 girls, my daughter included, I can proudly say, were just chatting and laughing and jostling each other and stuff. And this girl was just checked out. And so it's just a very stark, to me, illustration of what needs to be fixed. And we got to start doing this, or we're in deep trouble, I think. So, anyways, I was on a soapbox there for a moment, but yeah.
I think this is a really good idea. I think maybe the name could be worked on a bit.
It's a placeholder. Yeah.
But I guess my question is like, how
He started with the Music Genome Project.
I guess my question is like, how do you bring such specialty industry knowledge from music, right? Or maybe just in general from the industry. That's kind of what I'm going through now, doing the opposite, going from tech into music.
Well, I think there are things you learn no matter what you do that carry over. Simplicity, like I learned that, over and over again. It's like I'm completely, that's like my religion is simplicity. So there are probably other things I draw on from music, but yeah, there are things you bring. You may not even know it. Maybe subconscious.
I'm like kind of a little involved with this startup that is based in London right now. They just launched. It's called Stream Social, and they're trying to do something similar. Like their main idea, I guess, like how like the app works is like it's based on like real life interactions. So it's like a social media, but you gain like relevance. Like the algorithm favors you and stuff if you like make more real life interactions. How is that like different from something that you're doing? Are you more like just coaching them in like how to make these interactions, or like how do you kind of like force your users like go out and like interact with people?
Yeah, I don't know yet. This is all I got. So I'm not quite sure what it's going to look like. I mean, I have had the experience, to your question, of knowing that what I thought I was building when I started is not wound up where I wound up. So there's this term in technology called the unlock. So it's like when you kind of try things out, and at some point, like, oh, this thing opens up, but that's the thing that's working, And that's, I think, we're going to go through a process of discovery. And I think there are lots of people working on this problem in different ways. And the question is like, why hasn't someone succeeded? And like Blue Sky is kind of touted, I think, as this, but it's kind of the same thing, just sort of different, but it's got a lot of the same characteristics. I don't think it's fundamentally solving those problems. It does, though. Its rapid growth to me is a symptom that people are looking for something else, and they just haven't found it yet. So, and I'll certainly borrow from other. I'll be surveying this field and seeing what I think is cool and see if I can borrow it.
Yeah, for sure. Check out Stream.
I will. Yeah.
So what's the business model?
I don't know, but I do know it's not advertising supported. That's what I know. I think there's an interesting opportunity to potentially get the health insurance industry to subsidize this, because they're the ones paying the bill. As is local community, to be honest, it's healthcare costs. It's like these are factories pouring sludge into the river and not paying for it. They literally, 38% increase in heart cardiovascular disease. That's expensive medical treatment. And so how can you can you connect the business in such a way that because if they can subsidize it, it's an incredibly cost-effective intervention to pay, X bucks a month for someone to be, healthier, And there's these detox programs. There are psychiatrists prescribe stop using social media. Like literally, it's a prescription, So surely there's something there financially that could work. Yeah.
But they're still going to be on the phone, right?
Yeah. So I have an idea that while the activity is on the phone, the KPI for us, so the key performance indicator, is how much time you spend in person with your friends. Like if we're gonna what's our true north, that might be it. And the beauty of that is if you're not advertising supported, you can chase that as a goal because your goal is not being on the app. Okay, that's sort of a fatal flaw of social media. It succeeds by keeping you on the app. It's hard to do something else when you're locked into that. Yeah.
I think one thing to the coaching discussion, since this is still an idea, is that we have a society that's driven by algorithms now. And when you think about the Zennials, you hit a point where there's learning to refrain that algorithms are not authentic, and I think it would include teaching what true authenticity and being okay with it, that it looks different, and turning the algorithm back into a tool, not a friend.
That's a great point. I mean, vulnerability is not something people display that much on social media anymore. Right? It's kind of the opposite. Like you try to put out your perfect self and those kind of things, having a safe place that goes back to that. I think the question is, how do you do that without teaching people it? How do you convey that? How do you incite that kind of behavior without kind of making it complicated or heavy-handed? That's the art of design.
I think it's like turning it into a safe space that feels like a tool, not a friend.
I like that, yeah.
You're talking about insurance. Aflac in Atlanta has been what's called cancer fund. They buy technologies that can help reduce the rate of cancer. It's been involved.
Interesting, that there are also healthcare plans that cover subscriptions now to Calm and Headspace, I think. So it's starting to happen. Who knows?
I just want to offer up something that I've been mulling over for years now is how to do book clubs at scale, like conversation clubs at scale. So maybe that could factor in the interest group, like music.
What's a natural group formation?
Yeah.
Around something that lends itself to friendship.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Probably have time for one or two more questions, and then I'm going to give a pitch, and you need to pick who gets the $100, which is probably way harder now that you've had lots of time to forget about it. So, Anjali can help you if you need help. Any other questions?
Yeah. Is there a way to get involved or volunteer on this project?
Good question.
My email is timthesky1@gmail.com.
Timthesky1.
TIMSKY1@gmail.
All right, well, let's give a big round of applause to Tim. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. That was awesome. Really fascinating and I think eye-opening. I got something I want to share with you. I don't think I've given you one of these yet. You haven't got one of our coins yet, have you? Yeah, there's a tradition that we adopted from the military that we get a lot of visitors from, but it's a great tradition anyway for the separately, where have you ever seen Challenge Coin? No? When you meet with a general or a secretary of the army or something like that, they don't carry business cards, but if they want to recognize often somebody, usually somebody in the military, but every once in a while civilian, they will present them with they'll have a personal coin. Secretary of the Army, presented for excellence, and the badge of the Army and stuff like that. And because we have so many, this is actually our Center for Defense Innovation. We have the Army and the Air Force and the Navy and all these other groups stationed here on this floor. And so we get a lot of those visitors coming through. And one of the side benefits of my job is I get a lot of coins. I get them all visiting me. I've got and so at one point, one of Craig Cummings, who's actually another underground fellow, who's one of my #1 military advisor, he said, and a West Point grad, he said, Josh, you should make a capital factory coin, so when they give you one, you can slip them one back. And I was thinking oh, that's I'm gonna be a total poser. I don't want. And he's like, no, they'll think it's cool. And so we did it, and they thought it was super cool. And so then, of course, we take everything too far. And so we started making a coin of the year every year. And so every coin has the Capital Factory logo on one side, and then it has a year on it. This one says 2023, because that was the year that we launched the Fellowship Fund, which is what invested in your company. And so actually it's the same thing as my T-shirt on it. It has what's called the Executive's Compass, which is something we read about in a fellowship that we did together through the Aspen Institute. And so, so I give you one of our coins as a thank you for coming. It doesn't pay for your plane ticket, but it's a little memento, and you get it in a handshake. So it's there you go. So awesome. Well, again, let's give him another big round of applause. Thanks for coming. Thank you to all of the guests who joined us tonight, and for all the questions, and for helping. Next week we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming just with the students. And now they have some more new ideas that they can go pitch, 2 different ones from Tim. The Lean Canvas, reminder, you need to do that apparently tonight. It's not hard. If you can build an app in a day, you can do a Lean Canvas. It'll take you 15 minutes. Make sure you don't, again, this class is easy to pass. Don't make it hard. For your projects, again, and for pitching, just a reminder, if you haven't come up yet, please come up next week, try something, it'll be great. And we want you to be, I want everybody to get a thumbs up. I want to help you, so please come do it. And I gotta tell you, I have been it's getting harder and harder to come up with a pitch each week. When I first started this, I was like, all right, I'm gonna be able to have them build something for me every week. And and they do. A lot of times I get the things that I talk about built. And these days, a lot of times I think about stuff, and more I'm like, that's just a prompt. That's just a prompt. That's just a prompt. And I really do think there's this kind of existential thing coming with AI. Someone mentioned to me previously, they brought this concept up, are there even going to be UIs anymore? Or is the software kind of going to write itself on the fly all the time? In the same way that the chat responds to what you want, will it just create the software on the fly? Is what they predicted, and actually I don't think it's too far from being true. But I have to get on something for today. So the thing that I would really like that I still have not seen done well is something that would tie into everything that I listen to and somehow magically know, because I'm lazy. I don't want to have to go tell it everything and then the way to Pandora, I could just give it one song, but tie into maybe log into my Spotify or my Apple Music or something else and know what I'm listening to and what bands I like, or maybe it just listens and recognizes the songs, and then based on that and knowing where I am, tells me about shows coming up in person, live shows that I want to go see that either are the people I like or maybe kind of Pandora like related to them. And I've just never found something that balanced the line between not being just a bunch of spam and junk that I didn't really want, and really being personalized to what I knew. But then a lot of times I'll see some band and I want to realize oh my God, they're playing at Stubbs or this other place, and I didn't see it coming. And so yeah, that's what I would love is basically a live music recommendation service that is totally without me having to program it, totally personalized based on what I listen to. All right, so have you thought about the $100? Did you remember? You can rip it in half. And you got 250s on you? Yeah, I don't know. It's up to you. I gave you $100. I'm not giving you another $100. Yeah. All right. So you got to pick one.
Pick one.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
You might just have to say what it was.
It was the app to have encouraging words from a friend in your ear as you're
While you're running.
Yeah.
Is that the second time you've won? Is that? No. All right. Well, awesome. I thought it's awesome. Good job. Come on up. Get your $100. Great job. I love that app. I really think that's a fantastic idea. A really, really good idea. Great. Well, that's all we have for you today. I pride myself on ending our class right on time. The students, to be honest, it was just kind of like a trick. They're supposed to be on campus. Like, I'm just like, we just decided to move it down to Capital Factory and pulled it off, and they all come here. So we like give them an extra, half hour to get back and forth. But it works out great. They all have to come here. So glad that you could all be here too. The class, if you want to see our syllabus, is longhornstartup.com. We just made it up this year. We've been changing it, but feel free to take it, learn from it, copy it, make it better. Tell us how we can make it better. We're gonna keep changing it. And I hope this was interesting for you to see, not just just obviously the great ideas they have and how well they can, to pitch in and talk about it, but also super impressive to see what kind of things people can build in just a week or even a day using the tools that we have now. Not something like anybody could go do. One of the ones they mentioned a lot was Lovable. If you're not familiar with it, it's lovable.com. And it's like you go and you type in a prompt, like I want to build an app that does blah, blah, blah. Or you could just say the first week the assignment was to build Slack. Like everybody had built their own version of Slack. And so you literally go to Lovable, you're like, make me Slack. And I'm not saying it's that easy, but that's a really good start, and so it's really pretty amazing. So thanks so much for coming. The attendance is just for the students. Anyone else, if you fill it out, it'll be okay, but we're just keeping track for the students who came because they get graded. So thank you much for coming, and hope you enjoy the rest of Startup Week. Thanks, Tim.